Hi, my name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with Dag Johan Sundby. We're at Johan Vineyards. It's March 15th, 2021. Dag, thank you so much for joining us today. First question, biggest, most important question, why wine?
Wow, why wine? Yeah, that is the biggest question, isn't it? For myself, I would say I'm more, my story is more from the perspective of, you can say the wine industry found me and I wasn't seeking it out so much. Just events in my life that kind of led me here, that it was not a childhood dream of mine. I grew up in Norway until I was 27, and back home I was studying marketing. I was playing soccer. I had a couple of years in the armed forces, one mandatory year for Norway, and then I was down in the Middle East for a year, patrolling the Israeli-Lebanese border with the United Nations. And then after I graduated from college the Norwegian School of Management, this opportunity presented itself for me to come over to the United States through a kind of in a business internship, if you will. It was a colleague of my dad. He had done some business over here. He was in kind of more mergers, acquisitions, and investments, that style. So I was sent over to Denver, Colorado, and I had a mentor. And I was kind of just following my mentor's footsteps around, traveling around the United States. And that was really my first, during that internship, and this was in 2004, summer of 2004, that's when I was introduced to Oregon wine. I drank wine. I wasn't particularly interested in wine at the time, but when we were kind of wining and dining in Denver, I got introduced with some really beautiful Oregon Pinot Noirs, which opened my eyes to it. It's like, wow, this is incredible what they're doing up there. And also, my mentor's partner, if you will, had a vineyard, the neighboring vineyard over here. So through the grapevine, literally, I was made aware that this piece of property was up for sale. I had no ambition at the time to come up here and run it, but it was more an opportunity for long-term investment for my family, if you will. Mm-hmm. My mentor kind of ran this operation for the first couple of years when I enrolled in business school in Denver. So I went to the University of Denver, and I studied international MBA with a concentration in finance, of all things. So my career took a real left turn here. When I graduated, my mentor had some personal issues, some health issues to deal with. This was too much for him to kind of take on. It's taxing, physically and emotionally to run a vineyard and a winery. So I was left with a choice, basically, to come up here and run it, with my family being my only investor, or sell it. So at that time, I was already enough kind of emotionally invested in the industry. Once you get a little taste of it, it tends to suck you in. I've learned that, and it was hard to let it go. I was also, this was the summer of 2008 where I had to make this decision, and my wife Alice and I, we were getting married that summer in Iceland, and it was like, you know what, let's do this. This is not what I planned to do with my life, but it's an opportunity and an adventure, and I've never looked back since that decision was made. So that's kind of like how I got here, and then I've just grown more and more in love with the industry, as the years have gone. Ups and downs, of course. It is farming. You're at the mercy of Mother Nature. It's only so much you can control. So I've had to learn to control what I can control, and what I can't control, just let go. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, as far as Johan Vineyards, the biggest change we've done here was change the way we farm. So when I was up here early on, I had hired Dan Rinke as a wine grower up here, and he was the one that brought the idea of biodynamic farming to my attention. He had worked in a couple of vineyards and wineries down in California, so he had that knowledge. I very much liked the idea of organic farming for kind of long-term perspective on things. You know, I was a young vineyard owner and therefore have always had kind of a 25 to 30 year perspective on every decision I make. So I was intrigued with the biodynamic part of it. I knew very little about it. I have heard of the, you know, Rudolf Steiner and his philosophy, and I had some friends that I grew up with in Norway that just lived down the street from where I grew up, and they went to the Waldorf school in Norway. So that's kind of like the little bit of a connection I had to his philosophies and his way of teaching farming. And a nice kind of full circle synchronicity in this is that my childhood friend that I grew up with in Asker, it's just south of Oslo I grew up, he's now our importer in Norway of all things. So he ended up in wine, and he's actually importing and selling our wine. So it's a full biodynamic circle here from childhood to adult life, which I've noticed a lot of these different synchronicities and how they kind of become more apparent in my life. That, yeah, I don't know who wrote my life, but it was written in the stars somewhere. It's definitely what I have a deep sense of. Yeah. And so we made the transition for biodynamic farming in 2007. We got certified by Demeter in the 2010 in the vineyard, and we got the facility here certified the following year. So a lot of our focus has been diversity, biodiversity, and how we tend the lands here and how we farm. Also diversity and grape varietal in the surrounding areas of the rest of the farm here, and also diversity in how we distribute and sell our products. You know, it's kind of more and more looking like a well-diversified portfolio. If I'm making anything I learned from my time in business school and finance, that, you know, we've learned some lessons through the years, not to put too many eggs in one basket, not have any, you know, codependency, if you will, on other companies that we sell either too much fruit to or too much wine. So we have a nice spread. We sell fruit now currently to about 20 different wineries in the valley and up in Portland, and have a good community, greater community connection because of that. And also the way we distribute our wines, we are in about 12 different markets spread pretty evenly, and then we have, you know, some retail and wine clubs. So you know, we're not completely dependent on the decisions other people make, whether it's strategic or whether they, you know, call it. You know, it's not gonna drag us down. We'd be able to replace a few of them. So that's kind of our strength and our model now. And it's also really fun, you know, for everyone who works here, for the winemaker and the wine team to have now 16 different grape varietals. To, you know, some of them we sell, and I mean 10, 12 of them we make wine out of ourselves, and it keeps people on their toes. It keeps them creative, thinking. It makes it fun, you know. And I find we have a good balance now of kind of honoring the founders of the wine industry here, making some classic Pinot Noirs and some Chardonnay, and also, you know, pushing the envelope a little bit of more esoteric varietals and methods of making wine. So our philosophy is definitely the wine is made in the vineyard, and we're kind of guiding along in creative ways in the cellar. So the only additive we've ever made or have for our production side is a little bit of sulfur for preservation, and then it's all native fermentations and very natural process, and having a lot of fun. We have a great team here. I've truly been blessed with great people. I knew nothing about wine, coming into the industry, and I've had to rely on my own employees educating me on what the heck I'm doing here. So it's been a humbling journey, for sure. So now I try to support, everyone in their areas of responsibility. You have Morgan winemaker, she's responsible. She's also kind of a general manager here. So I support her in her work. Elise now is a vineyard manager. She took over for Dan. So support her anywhere I can there. And then you have Anna and the tasting room team. So, I mean, my strength now, I think, is that there's nothing I haven't done. I've done everything from sitting on a tractor, from spraying, to pruning, to grafting, to making wine, to doing punch downs, to, and going and selling wine and doing market visits. So I can kind of support everyone because I know my business now really well from ground up. And I think it's important, for me to know what everything kind of entails. You can. It's easy to sit back and say, hey, we got to cut farming costs. We got to the workers got to need work faster because of if you're just looking at a spreadsheet. But when you're actually out there and doing the labor, you get a sense like, oh, this is hard work. This you get a different appreciation for what people are doing around you, and I think that's really important. Yeah. So it's been a great journey, and it's ongoing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got lots more questions about that, but I want to back up for a second.
Sure.
You mentioned growing up in Norway. What did you intend to do? What did you think you'd be doing with your life?
Well, I mean, coming over to the United States in itself was just like, all right, my dad presented this opportunity for me, and I had to make a decision right then, like, okay, I'm going to leave the comfort of all my friends and family and go by myself, the other side of the Atlantic, where I basically know no one, and I was 27. So it was a big step for me just to do that and feel comfortable enough to do it. I remember when the day before I was leaving for my internship, I had some friends over and we had a little party. And after the party, my mom was crying, and I was like, Mom, it's like I'm gonna be gone for like 3 months. Like, what's up? And then here I am, 17 years later. So, the mother's intuition knew that I might not come back. Yeah.
You mentioned the various parts of your education in Norway and at the University of Denver. Tell me about the kind of the process of education for you, what you took away from it, and you mentioned kind of already a little bit what you use from that in your work now.
Yeah, I mean, I studied, as I said, international marketing, and then here in the International MBA in the University of Denver. So I feel that we are a very creative business here in how we are kind of responding to the market and the market changes, and also coming out with our own authentic products, and marketing is collaboration. It's pulling out creativity from the team around you. It's not like you can sit and dictate everything if you're going to be successful in marketing. Marketing is teamwork, So so that's been a philosophy of mine. What I'm kind of like forced to, and seeing how if I give employees here some creative freedom to go with responsibility, that they will grow as human beings here, working here, and they will, and I think they will be happy here because they can feel some ownership for it, And also, I mean, and of course, an MBA is a general business management degree, and it is a business. So, you know, having knowledge and also learning a little bit about cultural differences, although they're not huge between Norway and the United States, but you know, Americans do business their way, and it's a little bit different. So also I needed to learn the language well, you know, orally and writing, and that definitely improved. So you know, I wouldn't say my education was a waste of time and money. No, I'm glad I did it, and it's been useful just also for, you know, for my own general oversight over the business. Yeah.
That brings me to a question that we talk about a lot in these, obviously wine's a complicated business and a kind of a capital heavy investment. Tell me about how you kind of approached it once you said you kind of sunk your teeth into it, how you approached making it a workable business and a successful one. What were the kind of keys for you to make it work?
Not give up. You know, yeah, I'm not going to lie. It is. You know, you've heard it before. It is capital intensive, and you gotta be patient in what you do, and you gotta believe in what's being done. And no, there are, you know, several times in the past, especially when we made the transition from more conventional setup to the biodynamic farming, and kind of seeing how everything kind of like fell apart, you know, the canopy wasn't growing, the yields went down. I was like, oh no, on top of a very competitive and difficult industry to succeed in, like I'm going like really the hard way here, you know, and there was a lot of days with a lot of regrets and personal torment, but you know, I think it was the belief in the philosophy and how we approach it, and finally I had to like not stay so much in my mind as just sink into my heart and like, okay, this feels right. It doesn't maybe make sense number wise, you know, that all the things I just learned, I have to like, okay, let's just set that on hold and follow our heart, and yeah. You know, I think it's going through that has helped me grow as a human being, you know. But yeah, it was hard, you know, at times. But now, you know, what doesn't break you gives you some wisdom and makes you stronger. And now that we had the 2020 year just now where the yields were naturally low. We had smoke that, you know, affected the grapes, and, you know, and the lockdown pandemic, all of a sudden we couldn't open the doors there and sell our direct wines out. And then we ended up actually like coming through this year, you know, well, I would say we didn't make much money, but we didn't lose money either. So it's like, okay, now we're starting to see the strength of our model. And that gives us a lot of confidence going forward, that if you can break even on a disastrous, tough, difficult year, you know, you're going to be optimistic about the future, and all your anxiety is kind of going to go away a little bit. Yeah. So, no, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I have some advice now to give other people who wants to start a vineyard and winery and farm the way we farm, because we've learned through it, you know, and yeah, just diversity, and stick with it and believe it and don't give up. Yeah.
So I want to kind of take the growth of Johan in a couple different stages here, because obviously that what you've come to is this kind of diverse, fun, interesting biodynamic model. Took a while. It didn't come out of the box that way. So let's talk about the biodynamic part first, because that was sort of the first big piece of it. When you hired Dan and Dan approached you with this idea, why did you decide to do it? What ultimately was the decision in going with biodynamic versus maybe an easier organic model?
Well, it's something, you know, it's something, I don't know, mystical about it too, when you're not aware of it and then you've presented it, it's been presented to you, whereas kind of organic, not using herbicide, pesticide, you know, clean farming, that's easier to understand. When you come into the bringing the lunar, cycles and all these things that it's a part of a holistic, more spiritual approach to farming. There's something a little bit mysterious about it. And then, wine is also a little bit of a mysterious, product in itself that we can't kind of, I don't know, be too scientific about it. In my own opinion, we got to leave the mystery of it alive, and biodynamic farming and holistic approach to it certainly does that. Yeah.
So tell me about the process. You mentioned earlier kind of initial regret as a struggle. Tell me about that process and how long it took you to transition into what you consider like a successful biodynamic system.
Well, for certification purposes, they have a set kind of 3-year transition, period. I mean, Dan would probably agree with me, and through our observation that would probably take more like 5 or 6 years. That it takes a little bit longer for the whole system to get used to, the new way of being treated, basically. So if we transitioned in 07, and I think when we came to, around 2013, 12, 13 is where we saw that the canopy bounce up and everything started looking healthy, and then the yields came back, and 2014 came in, and then, new cycle, drier, warmer years, and good yields, and that's like, oh, there is hope, yeah, it felt good. But yeah, I'd say from my experience, going from a more conventional way of farming to this approach, I would say 5 to 6 years, just through our own observation. Yeah.
And the other part of what you mentioned was the kind of the variety of varietals, the way you've planted this out beyond the kind of typical Willamette Valley varietals. So tell me about that process. What led you to try things like Blaufränkisch and things like that as you were expanding the vineyards here?
Several reasons for it. One reason was ourselves and our own preference, what wines we like to drink and what wines we think would do well with our soils and our microclimate here. A little bit, of diversifying a vineyard that was very Pinot Noir heavy, that we wanted to, let's try some other grapes here, because now we're being very reliant on the market for the Pinot Noir grape itself, not just wine grapes, but that particular grape. And also there are economical reasons for it too. We have some of these Austrian varietals that are a little thicker skinned, they set a little heavier, they can sit through some weather, so when we have weather changes here and we get some cooler weather come in, in the fall, we can actually let them sit and the canopy holds up, and whereas, the Pinot Noir is really thin-skinned and delicate. So that, and also a little bit of demand in the market too with our winery partners that we sell fruit to, that wants to expand on their own portfolios and work with some more unusual grapes. So it's been a combination of several different factors that has made us as diverse as we are with our 16 different grape varietals. And it's fun, It's a lot of grafting, of course, and it's a little bit of money there too, that you take away a few acres of income for a year, but the following year you get that income back. So it's certainly a more economical way to do it than replanting, which, it's going to take you 3 or 4 years to get a good crop in. So it's a quicker way to do it with, top grafting on established rootstock. So yeah, and now, now we have some experience with them, and we're seeing some grape varietals that we can say, well, they work really well on our ancient marine sedimentary soils. We get the salinity through in the whites. We get this beautiful sanguine kind of blood iron compounds in our red, and Johan wines are becoming pretty distinct. You can taste that they come from Johan, and that's what we want too. We want the transparency. We want our wines and grapes to be good translator of the land, so you get a really kind of distinct sense of place. And by also fermenting with indigenous yeast, we're having a combination of yeast that's driving fermentation that you can't really copy. It's just created here with whatever yeast culture has been developed in the cellar and what you pull in from the vineyard every year. So and some people will say it's risky to do it that way, that you have less control during the fermentation process. I'm completely ignorant when it comes to that, because indigenous fermentations is all I've ever been involved with. So I was like, what is this adding yeast? Like, why would you do that? They just ferment themselves. So sometimes it's not being schooled in certain areas can be to your benefit, but yeah.
Don't know what you're missing if you don't know what's there, right?
Exactly, yeah. Ignorance is a bliss sometimes, yeah.
You mentioned the site and how it has kind of a uniqueness to it that you're starting to be able to notice in the wines. Tell me about this site and about your process of getting to know it once you got here. What's unique about it? How do you define the terroir here, and how long did it take you to get familiar with it?
Yeah, well, let's start with the site and the terroir, if you will. What is the signature of our place in this area? There is a lot of marine influence here, not just from the ancient marine cemetery uplift, but also from the Duzer Corridor here, the gap in the coastal range that pull maritime cool air in through that corridor in the afternoon, creates this heat sink. When the valley warms up in the summer, we have 90 degrees here. In the afternoon, the winds pick up a lot and pull that air in, and you can smell the ocean here. You can smell the saltiness, and vines are incredible because they absorb all these phenolics in its own environment from the soils and also ambient in the air. So I say that's the strongest component, signature, if you will, of our wines. This salinity, this kind of ocean feel you get from here. And then we also we are in an area here where the Missoula flood back in the day made its pass through. 50,000 years ago, the glacier started breaking up in Montana, and these great flood events happened and kind of came down through the gorge and down through the whole valley here, scoured off the deeper topsoils that were on these rolling hills, deposited that on the valley floor, and kind of just left behind whatever it had dragged down all the way from Montana. So it's a lot of kind of rocks and minerals that are not really native to the area that's been brought down here, and this kind of younger, decomposed, created topsoil, which is kind of shallow, which is kind of what you want to create this needed stress. But also, we're noticing when the vines are maturing a little bit and the taproots get deeper down in that clay marine cemetery soil, that we cut out any form of irrigation. Once it's down there, it finds its own moisture. So even through these years, 14 through 18, was a warm, dry cycle here, we didn't have to put one drop of water on the vineyard. So the more they mature, even more distinct sense of place you will get from this maritime influence.
And how long did it take you to become familiar with the site? To feel comfortable with it?
That's kind of a difficult question to answer. I moved up here, I'd say the end of 07, and I'd say, maybe 4 or 5 years, till I felt like, okay, I can kind of grasp at least what's going on here. I can try to understand the site, its strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats and all that. But yeah, it probably took me a little while to get used to, and also to get used to the quiet out here. Yeah, living out here all isolated with your own thoughts, whoo, yeah, city slicker like me, it takes a little while to get used to that. I think it's easier for my wife. She grew up and both her parents were professors at the University of Colorado, so she grew up just outside Boulder on this little goat farm that they were running. So she was like used to it. So for her, it's like, oh yeah, it's like feels at home. And for me, it's like, it's quiet out here. Yeah. But so that too, and I think that's a part of it. Just getting used to the place, getting at peace with it, the quiet and the isolation, and then you end up with a place like now where I just see the city. I'm like, oh, that's loud. Like, how can people live there? So much stress and movement, and man, they got to get out of nature, So yeah, it's funny how that goes. How much the environment around us impacts us. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, we're like little vines ourselves. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier you kind of see your role as supporting, and you having done everything here a little bit at least. In day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year work now, how do you kind of define what you do? What do you do? How is your year planned out? How does your year scheduled, and what roles do you fill around here?
Well, it's clearly perfectly tailored for for me. It's very diverse at this point. Like I mentioned, I've kind of done everything here, and including, the management and the budgeting and that business side of it. And I've kind of handed that over to Morgan now. And now I'm more floating around supporting everyone, and I can answer questions. I can step in, if someone gets sick or is gone, I can step in and do it. But yeah, I love my morning routines now. I get up in the morning early and I go and let out the chickens and the ducks and I feed them and I see the sunrise and I get this, get my steps in and get this beautiful, soft start to the morning, give my thanks, for everything I've been granted in life. And then that kind of like just mentally sets me for the day. And then I do a little bit. I can run errands. I can help out on the crush pad here, as you see now, with hand bottling of pet nat. I can go out and do some, counts of vines or whatever needs to be done in the vineyard. I can be flexible right now with home, with having 2 children. Now, my wife and I, we've got 2 children. They're 2 girls, they're 8 and 10. So I can be flexible and helping out there too. My wife is a immigration attorney. She works for a law firm in Salem. And they've been really flexible and helpful as well. So yeah, I'm blessed in that there's great diversity in my day-to-day tasks here. And I love playing that role of supporting everyone now and just being around as inspiration, encouragement, and then seeing people grow into their own roles. In the beginning I was owner and CEO, and it's like I can't play both good cop and bad cop and managing. It's like this is not working out. But giving people then more personal responsibility that comes with their creative freedom, if you will. You have to balance that out. Then I feel like that's working really well. And I have like I said, I have a great team now, and there's great harmony among the team, which is very important.
Is there a favorite role that you play? Is there something you look forward to most, whether it's working in bottling or in the vineyard or selling, or is there something you enjoy the most?
Yeah, harvest. Yeah, by far. I mean, everything we do here the whole year, I mean, it leads up to this one shot of getting everything right. You know, we have all this stress with all the fruits there. The fruit's vulnerable when you come in here. The wine's vulnerable as long as it's in barrel, and then this whole process from just pruning to having it in bottle and harvest is where it all kind of happens at once. So it's definitely the most labor intense time of the year. It's where I work long days as well, we all do, but it's something so gratifying about it to bring that fruit in and to smell it. And I love my role, and since I live on the property here now, we built a house on the property here in '09, I can do the night punch downs, when the crew is all worn out and tired, send them home, they can get some much needed sleep. And I have the cellar for myself, and I got like 30 fermenters, and I'm sitting there and just, gently pushing down the fruit and smelling them and taking my time, and it's just a magical moment. Yeah, I love that.
I can see that being a pretty cool way to end your day. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned the team a couple of times, obviously Morgan and Dan before her, and the rest of the team here. Tell me about building that team. What have you looked for in people you've hired, and then what has your kind of management style been? You mentioned giving people responsibility. Is that something you always wanted to do, or is that something you kind of grew into?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an evolution in a sense, in how the different positions here have been kind of filled and formed. In the beginning, it was very much forming the position based on the strength of the employee, and now we're kind of like, okay, we need a little bit more defined than that. That's too much, And the flip side of that is, like, if you have just this complete recipe of what a position should be, like bullet points, that's too structured again. So we need to find a balance between being flexible to change things around according to the strength that the employees bring to the table, but also having each area of responsibility and kind of daily tasks defined enough that people kind of know what they're supposed to do here. So it's very much been an evolution. There was not some set template that I worked from when it comes to that. And now that the company is like maturing a little bit, we have, with me, it's 8 people working here now, plus, we're hiring vineyard management companies and their crews to do large work in the vineyard. But we're a small team here still, but we're enough now that we can define the roles a little bit, and I think people will also be comfortable with that and knowing what their area of responsibility is. This is my little domain that I get to, no one's going to boss me around in these tasks, give people that freedom, and also provide enough oversight, and there is a lot of overlap with these positions we have here. We all kind of have to know what other people are doing, what their tasks are, so we can step in for each other. If there's a baby boom going right now, the winemaker at Morgan had a baby, and now Elise is going to have a baby, and now we're like, all right, so we need to kind of like, we can't just hire new people to replace them, so we need to kind of overlap that a little bit. So everyone needs to be able to be involved in everyone's tasks to a certain extent to give us that flexibility.
And what are you looking for? What do you look for in employees? What are the biggest things you're looking for when hiring?
I personally, I like honesty and also passion. If you find an employee who is genuinely honest and authentic, as well as having a passion for, not only wine, but also our approach to it. People are kind of aligned with our philosophy. That would be, the biggest traits. And of course, they got to be capable and have the skills to perform their, their assigned task. So yeah, it's always interesting. You know, we don't have a whole lot of turnover here. I mean, some, but the whole interview process too is not me sitting and hiring people and introducing the new employee to the team. No, we have Katie and Morgan, and it's a team, more of a team interview that we all are involved with, because, you know, the synergies and how people work together is really important. So if you bring them in, let them do, you know, part of the interview, you are more likely to prevent future friction from happening, because now they have to take ownership and also the hiring process, you know. Giving people ownership, then they gotta live up to that responsibility in a sense. Yeah.
You talked earlier about a crowded wine marketplace. Of course, it's only gotten more crowded since you started selling wine. Tell me about the process of selling your wines and the kind of, you mentioned kind of a diverse approach to that. So tell us how you have sold your wine successfully and what your kind of strategy, philosophy is behind that.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning here, you know, we started off as a grower of grapes and just selling pretty much all the fruit back in, you know, 05. Johan was founded in January 05. That's when my family invested in the property. That 05 vintage, we had, you know, 250 cases of Pinot Noir made in the neighbor's winery. And the following years, we made, you know, 600-700 cases up at Quello's winery in Amity before we made the investments here and had our own commercial winery on site. So it was kind of finding homes for these wines and bringing it up to a almost like an economical level that would be sustainable, you know. You know, selling wine is hard. You know, in the beginning, it was a lot of cold calling and trying and failing. And certainly there's been times where we racked up inventory, which is very expensive to have all that capital tied up in inventory. But it is a relationship-driven industry. So the more relationships you get, the better match you will find as far as distribution and partner wineries and all that. So it's been equally much just taking recommendations from our peers, you know, saying, hey, I think this distributor will be a good match for you guys because they have a portfolio with a bunch of biodynamic wines and they know how to sell you guys wine. Like, okay, thank you for that. And yeah, relying a little bit of the industry to kind of help us out, and we'll then be willing to help other people out starting in the industry here. It's been actually very friendly. I would say I don't notice a lot of that competitiveness and that jealousy and like, I need to step on you to, you know, exalt myself, but actually a lot of collaboration among our peers. And that's kind of how we have found the distribution channels we have now to a great extent, is by word of mouth and finding distributors who understand our wines, who appreciate the way we do it, and also know how to sell them. And of course, as the company matures and the name gets out there, as you're building your brand name, you know, then people start contacting you too, and it becomes a little bit easier. But in the beginning, it's like, yeah, all right, let's do this. I don't know. We didn't work on a set template there either. We're kind of like, all right, let's go sell one bottle at a time and see how it goes. And now we are getting to a point where we have, you know, half our wines allocated. You know, they have homes before we bottle them even. So we're getting to a better, more comfortable position there too. And you know, we try to provide a product that we feel is of high quality. Certainly lots of love gone into crafting it, and also at fair prices, competitive but fair prices too. again, if you have this surge of demand, you become this new great thing in the valley. It's easy to jump on and take advantage of that. Like, okay, let's just crank up prices on everything. Again, I see that as a shorter term strategy, and that you can rake in some short-term profits that way. But again, with the longer perspective on this, you're like, now we got to grow slow and steady, also with the pricing and everything, and we don't want to step on anyone's toes, and we don't want to come across as being unfair, because it is a small industry, and your reputation is going to precede you. So, yeah.
How have you seen the demand for both biodynamic grapes and for biodynamic wines change since you started farming biodynamically?
Well, I think there's an increased awareness of it, for sure. In the beginning, no one that we're trying to sell wine to hadn't heard of biodynamic, the biodynamic approach, and now people are seeking us out because of it. I've also heard or seen that there are more vineyards that are transitioning to that approach. Even some bigger companies that are making some larger commitment to this type of agriculture, which is great, and we want to encourage that, of course. Of course, I want everyone to farm like we do. Wouldn't that be great? But so I think it's growing awareness is a good thing for us. More demand for transparency is a good thing for us. We don't have anything to hide, we don't have a secret formula of additives we put on our wine, so full label transparency would benefit us. And so I think we're set up well for the future and what the market will demand from us as a producer. Transparency, and then also a focus on respectful stewardship of the land again.
So you have a pretty unique wine club with your farm share. Tell me about how that came about and how that has worked for you so far.
It's something that we've thought about, and now we can get into, this last year with the COVID happening and the lockdowns and all this, and what we've kind of been the changes we've been forced to making. So it was a perfect opportunity for us last summer to start this program. We had a vegetable garden there that, some years were planted and some years were neglected. It's like, it's not going to be top priority. And so Elise really took on that project last year, and we planted it out, and we started this CSA program. And I mean, you can just imagine the demand for that was high. People were sitting locked up in their apartments and homes, and then, here's this offer. We can come drive to your door with a box of organic produce to go with your 6-pack or case of wine. Woohoo! So it was very successful, and we kind of just had to limit what we could offer based on our own supply of it. So that's something that we're going to continue with and expand a little bit on it as well. First year, you learn a little bit about everything, how the distribution of that and the logistics going to work, how it's kind of economically is going to pan out to do it as well. So we're learning from that, and we're tweaking it a little bit for this year, and then expanding on it. That's been great.
Tell me about your, thinking back, your kind of initial impressions of the Oregon wine industry. What were the first impressions you had of it, and how have those impressions changed from then to now?
Well, I think it has changed somewhat, but also been pretty consistent in my impression early on. Being this blue-eyed guy from Norway, coming here completely ignorant of everything, I feel like Oregonians are really warm and welcoming people, very helpful. Like I said, there's a lot of good collaboration among our colleagues here, and there's a lot of passion too, and I see this passion, and I kind of love that people in the industry really, really love what they're doing, and that's across the board. But of course, with this passion, emotions can run high as well, so that's where you got to find a balance. But I'm seeing a lot of passion in the Oregon wine industry, and Oregonians are just incredibly loyal to Oregonian agriculture and wine and products in general. So it's amazing how much Oregon wine is being sold in Oregon. It just baffles me. How loyal people are to the local producers. But also it's a young industry, it's a growing industry. There's lots of opportunity for the Oregon wine industry as a whole to do a better job marketing itself and finding its own identity, in the greater wine marketplace. And then of course we kind of have to agree a little bit of what is that identity going to be, what is it currently, and who decides, It's like the process in creating an AVA here in our area. So Dan and I, we started that by inviting our neighbors here in 2010, I believe, and saying, okay, we're Willamette Valley AVA, we don't have a sub-AVA, we feel like we're in a very distinct area, and how do we go about, promoting that, if you will. And so a lot of neighboring politics, of course, with everyone having their own vision of what it should be like, and then kind of finding common ground and middle ground, and that's kind of how things have to be. Everyone voices their own opinions and how they see it, and then bring it to the table, and then collectively we gotta make decisions together. We're happy when that AVA, the Van Duzer Corridor AVA, went through, and now we don't have to say, oh, we are in the area just west of the hills, or just south of the Dundee and McMinnville. No, we're in the Van Duzer Corridor AVA, so now we find even a more distinct sense of place here. And I certainly have my opinions on what our areas bring, and what makes, let's put Pinot Noir as an example, distinct here from the other sub-AVAs. I feel they are, our fruit gets really kind of almost dark, good color, darker color, but also very red fruited, and the saltiness again from the soils here. They make our wines distinct in its own right. I think our wines are beautiful food wines. We sell a lot of our wines through restaurants, and chefs tend to love working with them because they get good acidity, good structure, pairs well with food. So
What about as you look ahead for the Oregon wine industry? What's coming in the next 5 or 10 years that you're excited about or concerned about, or what do you kind of hope is happening next?
I hope we can continue to work together, and actually give ourselves room, space for our differences too, that we don't have to point fingers and telling people how we should do it, but rather give each other room to be creative and kind of naturally, authentically finding our own identity. And I think it's important for young people coming into the industry to respect what's already been done here, what's been laid out in front of us. So kind of showing the respect of the founders of the industry and what they've built, so we don't step on any toes that way. And at the same time, maybe the more established, founding wineries can be open to kind of some new young impulse and creativity, that we can find that balance, so it doesn't have to be all friction, but actually find some common ground there, that this youthfulness, this progress, this creativity, this willingness to experiment and going out there, give room for that, and then also maintain a certain level of respect and integrity of what's been done here. I think that's going to be really important, to find that balance moving forward.
You talked earlier about 2020 and the multiple challenges it presented. So I want to start with COVID and how it affected kind of your wine life, and how you sort of affect the industry in general, and what you see coming out of it for yourself and for the industry, for Johan and for the industry.
Yeah, I'm going to speak for myself and for us, because I've told you I already live very isolated here, and even more so after this lockdown. So what other people have done through this, I have very little knowledge of. So of course for us, initially it was a little bit of a shock, all of a sudden we couldn't have people come here, visit us. We are relying on some direct to consumer sales, and wine club and all that. So that was tough. Also scary in that, wow, we sell a lot of wines to restaurants, especially here on the West Coast, and now the whole restaurant industry is just shut down. Will the retailers or other avenues be able to compensate for this? So that was a little scary, and I'm glad I've entered this year with a little bit of experience, on my back, and that I can say, okay, I can't control this, why worry about it? Because I feel like this was one of those years where it was easy to worry a lot, I certainly believe in the law of attraction. It's like what you fear and what you worry about, you also attract, and that doesn't help you. So you have to let it go. Just control what you can, do the changes that's doable, for you. So we did, we have just kind of revamped and built our website. So we were lucky enough that once the shutdown went, we saw a surge in online orders. So that compensated some. We saw that retail sales went a little bit up as the restaurant market kind of died. And that helped a little bit that. And then we were reliant on some PPP, money as well to get us through the year, cash flow wise. And when we then slowly started opening up again last spring, early summer, we did appointments only. We had to serve outside, of course. So we had to implement that system. And that's something we've been thinking about doing previous years, but we haven't really pulled the trigger on. And now, all right, now we have to do it. And we're a small little tasting room here, and we're right on the winery facility, and it can get a little crowded here when we just have walk-ins in the summer and the weekends, and we have 60 people here, and it becomes a little chaotic, and we can't control that. So now we have appointments, and then we have a little bit more control how to staff it, how to prepare, especially for the weekends in the summer. And it creates a little bit more of an intimate experience for the consumer too. Now they come and sit down. We actually come to their table. We serve to them. We introduce ourselves. We can educate them more. And because of that, we've also seen an increase in wine club signups, which helps. So yeah, we were in a blessed situation where we had the sales channels kind of established, so we could move things around, and it worked out for us. But of course, I can't imagine how early startups, if this happened to me, back in 2010 or something, I'd be tearing my hair out. I don't know. So I have a lot of sympathy for people who have been hit hard with this pandemic, and just count my blessings and that we were kind of set in a place where we were able to adapt to it, if you will. So yeah, it's been pros and cons through it. But I think our model and being creative and adaptable really helped us last year.
Of course, the other part of last year, like you mentioned earlier, was harvest. Already going to be a small fruit set from all along, and then the smoke that hit us in September. So tell us about handling that and what kind of how you handled that crisis.
Yeah, I relied on Morgan. I was like, all right, Morgan, like we got to pick this fruit and we got to make wine out of it. We, like, what do we do? And we talked about it, of course, and she was really adamant about how to kind of keep everything separate. We brought fruit in, we did a lot of kind of early pressing, separated just what we siphoned, what was light press and what was hard pressed. So when, down the road, we would have a little bit more flexibility in blending. We certainly did make a lot less red wine than we had planned on, and we made more pet nats and rosés and other alternative, wines as well. But again, now we have also really diversified portfolio of wines. I mean, you see behind me here, we have some, 16, 17 different SKUs and with distinct different vinification techniques to craft them. So we've created demands for our pet nats and for certain other wines we have, so we could boost those programs and and catch up on some inventory of still wine to kind of like manage this. And what was incredible was that we ended up processing the exact same tonnage in 2020 as 2019 by just shuffling things around, which was incredible. Yeah, I'm still baffled that we got through 2020 the way we did. It was amazing. But yeah, we learned a lot from it, of course, and then we just hope it's going to be at least 10 or 20 years till we get another smoke event like that. Yeah, I mean, one thing is the impact that smoke has on the grapes and the wine when kind of the smoke gets settled in a valley like this, and what you can do to alleviate it. We have very few tools the way we craft wines to kind of extract that out of it. But this is my point. What we also got to keep in mind is that when this smoke event happened, the sky, we all saw the red skies, dramatic. We have beautiful pictures from it, but it darkened us for 10 days, which means that sunlight didn't get through, which means there was no photosynthesis, there was no ripening. So for 10 days, instead of having 90-degree weather, and brilliant sunshine, we had 10 days of 68 and dark, so the whole harvest just got pushed back a couple of weeks, and we were picking fruit here like well into November because of that. And yeah, it was crazy, but I don't know, we got through it. Yeah, and the thing is, there's some wines from 2020 that I'm super excited about. This pet nat we're hand bottling out in the crush pad right now, a Pinot Noir, it's beautiful, and that was just, we picked it, we pressed it really fast off the skins, and I can't detect any smoke in it, and it's beautiful and fruity. And then we might have a couple of SKUs that we're going to come out with that we're not going to hide, what's in it and what's impacted. So we're going to make, probably have a couple of barbecue wines to offer, and that's how it goes, and yeah.
So as you talked about the evolution of Johan to this point, and obviously all the changes you made and kind of where you're at now, and feeling like you've matured a bit as a company. What's next? What do you see as you look ahead for the next 5 or 10 years for both yourself and your role, and also for Johan and its evolution?
I mean, we're going to continue to increase our wine production a little bit. We are going to do a little bit more grafting of varietals that we now have grown for a while and feel there's a real demand for, and that makes sense and make beautiful wines and also economically works out. So some of these smaller 1 acre blocks, we're going to just increase of that to boost our wine program in certain SKUs. And also we're going to put more emphasis on direct to consumer of actually hosting people out here. So you know, having a better setup for hospitality, move it from here into another part of the property with great views, and expand on it a little bit so we can accommodate this traffic and this draw that we've now created. Now we're becoming a bottleneck. Now sometimes we have too many people, and that's a good problem to have, you know. We've incorporated a lot of like animals. We have chickens now that graze through the vineyards. We have ducks. We're going to have some sheep come in, and they're going to be grazing through the vineyard to help with our biodynamic program that way, and also make this area really family friendly for people to come out and have picnics and sit at the picnic table, have little walk trails, have some animals, nature, vineyards, you know, just increase that experience of coming out to Johan. There's great opportunity for us in that area, and I love kind of the balance about making about wine from 50% of what we grow and selling 50% for cash flow reasons, and also for this interconnectedness with the greater community, that you know that we have great friends in the industry, and we want to support them with fruit that kind of built their brands up also on our fruit, and go from there.
Do you have a size in mind, either for like planted acres or for wine production? Or are you just you mentioned growth. Do you have a goal in mind, or is it growth as you can?
Not short term, at least. Down the road, possibly. Right now, we had 3 blocks here that we leased out to our neighbor over a period, and then we've just gone through the process of buying those blocks back. So the acreage we farm here has incrementally increased over the last 4 years, where we farmed 63 acres, we took on another 24, we're up to 87. We need to find homes for the fruit and the wine. So we've really grown that, a lot. So I think there won't be any major plantings here, possibly, short term, but we're going to have to expand on the facility here some way, somehow, and also find ways to put some infrastructure for some hospitality, maybe do a few more events out here, maybe some weddings, and just have this as a great place to come out on Saturday or Sunday afternoon and bring your family, and come here all stressed out and leave all, with a zen.
Like it.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned earlier was kind of having gone through a lot of ups and downs and some struggles, and having some advice. So tell me, if someone were to come to you for advice, what would your advice be to someone getting into the industry, or someone who maybe wanted to do kind of what you've done here?
Commit to what you're, really try to commit to what you're doing. Don't give up, and be ready for reality. Like, it's not all romance in running a vineyard and a winery. It's hard work, and it's agriculture, it's farming. So mentally prepare yourself that, the first 5 to 10 years is going to be a trial. But if you get through that, you can establish yourself, and you can have a wonderful career in life in the wine industry. But that's finding that balance. But believing that, I just want to follow my dream and it's going to be so great, and then first sign of adversity you fall apart and you run away. But no, it's going to take all that you have to succeed in this industry. It's going to take a full commitment. But then do it humbly. Respect what's done. Reach out and ask for help and direction. Put your pride aside, and focus long term on being proud of what you've accomplished once you're there. Yeah.
Like that. That's really good. All the questions that I have for you today. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have? Is there anything we didn't cover here today that we should have covered?
No, I think we've covered a lot today.
I think so too.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent, thank you. We really appreciate you having us here and telling us your story and all your interesting answers and perspectives, and we'll let you off the hook.
Okay.